Hey there, you, me, and DC fans, and welcome if you are new. I am the stepson of Krypton,
And I am Mantis.
and today we are going to be breaking down the Captain Marvel versus Superman. Is she the MCU's Superman or not? All right, guys. So there's been a couple articles here lately addressing what's going to happen with Captain Marvel, whether they're going to recast her, whether it's just they're going to be done with that whole series, at least, as far as maybe her independent movies, given how the Marvels turned out. I think we all know how well that did in the box office. The question is Captain Marvel the MCU Superman? Is she facing the same problems that Superman faces? Right? Mantis,
I think
first
the
take.
yeah yeah I think the character is very similar. However, I don't think the reason why maybe this is a wrong. I'm giving an answer to something you didn't ask. Like the character, because you know what I'm gonna say. Like the characters are very similar, yes, but I think Captain Marvel as a success or failure story, and mainly a failure one here, is like strictly due to the writing, creative choices, acting.
Were you born?
Huntsville, Alabama, but technically I don't remember that part.
Name of your first pet?
Mr. Snoofers.
Mr. Snoofers.
That's what I said. Did I pass?
Not yet. First job?
Soldier, straight out of high school.
And Disney has destroyed the character, or Marvel, however you want to look at it. And in that sense, it's completely different than the way Superman was done.
Why did you say that name? Martha, why did you say that name?
Stop! Please, stop!
Why did you say that name?
Obviously, we've discussed Superman quite often on this channel about the choices that DC made with Superman, and although not extremely better, they are better choices that they made with the character and sticking with the main themes of the character and taking some liberties here and there, but as far as their I think the main question you're going to ask is this is the main problem that you get with characters like this, that you get with god characters, right, in movies in general, not just comic book movies, but definitely in comic book movies. Like you run out of things to throw at them, right? Like how do you construct a good narrative and a good story with a good villain? Because we're talking superheroes here, there's two sides to that coin. You can't just have a good superhero, you have to have a good villain for that superhero to fight, or it's just bad, as we've seen multiple times with Superman. So I mean, that I agree with you. I think leading you into that to what your response is for that as well.
Well, because and let's think about it. All right, now I know there are people who have their hatred for Captain Marvel as the character, or for Brie Larson and her acting in this. Put all that aside for the moment, right? Let's just say that, because if you think about it, the Captain Marvel movie did more than by far than any of the Justice League, Batman v Superman, any of the Superman movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like $1.3 billion. But you think about the character, do you think about Superman in Justice League? What happened? He was absent most of the movie, showed up at the very end to kick ass with this whole other team that couldn't handle the bad guy. Captain Marvel, kind of similar situation, right? Shows up at the end of Endgame, kicks ass. I mean, now granted, Tony is the star of that scene, and she did get just fucking decked with that Power Stone. But she stops him from snapping his finger. She takes the headbutt from him, right? When they actually showcase her full power, she probably could have wiped out most of those people on herself. She takes out his ship just by flying through it. So again, you have these OP characters that have to, all you can do if you're putting them in a team movie is them show up at the end or give them some excuse of why they're not in it, right? Because otherwise it's like, this wouldn't be that big of a challenge. It was kind of like they show Superman or the Justice League, and they're like, oh, at 99%. And it's like, without Superman, then it drops all the way down. Like, he is the Justice League. Now, granted, Thor is very powerful as well, but if you remember throughout the whole Thor Ragnarok, Infinity War, Endgame, his powers kept fluctuating, right? On how powerful they were making him. So with her, you've got this ultra powerful character that, like, yeah, she could have done a lot of these things that these other characters in their own movies were struggling to do. She could have just taken care of them just like Superman. And if you put Superman in a Batman movie, he'd take care of every one of Batman's villains, in about 5 seconds.
Because it's time to deserve a hero and things for Gotham. Right. Dark Knight.
Right. Hey, Bat Bro, I hope it's not a big deal, but while you were talking there, I went ahead and stopped crime. Like, all of it.
So it's
snap. Yeah.
Is the character, I guess the question is the character already made too OP to make a good movie or like a good video game? When you think about like Superman, we're struggling to get a good Superman movie. We're struggling to get a good there's no such thing as a good Superman game, man. They just can't do it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like, I think the real way you have to tackle those things with godlike characters in story writing is you have to appeal to two different sections of it. One, which you see with like in Captain Marvel, where the gauntlet is really the main villain there, right? Like, that's the power. That's what she's fighting up against, right? In Superman, since there's two really, you have the Doomsday, which he can't be killed.
I told you, every time you die, it just makes you stronger.
And as well as Darkseid, two very good, strong villains, right? And that's on like just power versus power, right? But there's also this other side to the characters that kind of Batman gets into a little bit as well. But with Superman, it's you have to maybe attack their vulnerability of sympathy against humans and stuff like that, which is why a lot of people didn't like what they did with Man of Steel, because it's like your one rule, you don't Superman doesn't kill, right? So you have to attack that side of it, more psychological enemies or situations to put godlike characters in. With Captain Marvel, I don't know if that's she's I don't know, unless I guess maybe you get a bunch of feminists that are about to be killed and she has I don't know
67% of the top critics reviewing the 100 highest grossing movies in 2017 were white males.
What you do to attack that side of the character that they built.
Well, now if you compare the two, I think the big problem is, Superman spent his formative years being raised by, and when he was a kid and growing up, being raised by humans and a loving family. Then he spent kind of walking about the earth, kind of living as a human, trying to help where he could, but also understand humans. So there is that compassion for humanity. Whereas when we see Captain Marvel in her first movie, she doesn't remember anything. She doesn't know anything. That's why she's stone faced, right? She doesn't know anything. She doesn't have any emotions, any connection to these people. She doesn't even think she's human. She thinks she's part of the Kree race, and she's just above these guys. So there's that, you don't have that, I think, in her movie is lacking. And then, they throw in this kind of odd of like, when she does start to remember her best friend, well, then she leaves for like 25 years and never comes to visit her once. And it's like, somebody who can fly in space at ungodly speeds, and you never returned home once. So I feel like with her, they set her arc up, and it was like, okay, we're trying to give her a little humanity and stuff. And then in the next movie, boom, it was gone, right? You just did away with it. There was no point. So the question comes down, is there a way to make a good Captain Marvel movie or include her into the Avengers? Now, obviously, when Secret Wars comes out, it would be easy to have somebody of her power level in there because there's going to be people a lot more powerful than her within Secret Wars.
Right.
So,
That makes
yeah,
more sense. Yeah, yeah.
but in the current running, because you also got to remember too, if she's on Earth, we're running in the current MCU, right? With all these other heroes. So unless you're doing another
Right.
crossover movie, what event is going to require somebody of Captain Marvel's power that isn't going to bring the rest of the team, right? Like it's the same thing with Superman. What event is Superman going to deal with that isn't going to warrant getting most of the rest of the Justice League out there, right? That he can't just deal
Right.
with in 2 seconds. Like
Right, right.
what a
He doesn't.
movie level event.
It's like, well, he's level 100, right? Well, he's not going to go in the starter zone of the video game and fight level 2 bad guys to get XP, right? Like he's not going to do that. He's going to let the noobs and the new players, take care of those. Let the lower end, Justice League members do that. With you were talking about with Secret Wars, like I completely agree. Like I think that's the only way you can do it, or it's not going to be on Earth because again, we've already broken that barrier. And they started to in DC, right? They started to get into aliens and stuff like that, but they nixed that. So now you got to start over, which is fine. But with the MCU, Phase 4 or Phase 3, really a lot of it, you got into with Guardians of the Galaxy, right? You're getting into space wars and aliens and all this crazy shit, right? And so you can't just bring that shit to Earth and just everyone forget about it. Or maybe you can.
I am just a figment of your imagination.
As we have previously discussed. Otherwise, yeah, you're gonna have to take it into different realities, stuff like that, where way stronger beings exist, and it warrants bringing in someone with upgraded level powers there.
Well, and if you think about the interesting thing is, think about what's going on with the new Superman movie going to be coming out. How many other heroes are in this movie? Now, we don't know as of right now what part they're going to play, but this kind of goes back to what we're saying. You can't have a Captain Marvel or Superman level character without if it's on Earth and there's the groups of people, if it's a threat that's going to warrant making a good movie for Superman, it's going to warrant bringing in some other people. They're not just going to say, well, you know what, like he's going to handle it. A good chunk of the city is going to get destroyed. We could help out, but we'll let him handle it. with Captain Marvel, it's the same way. I think you need to separate her from the rest of the MCU, have her be out on other planets where there are bad guys, like super powerful bad guys, but it's not, the Avengers aren't going to be there to join her, right? She's going to be doing this stuff on her own. And then again, when you have like Secret Wars or things like that, then she comes in, kind of like she did in Endgame. And that's kind of unfortunately now Secret Wars. I think it's going to seem more like we need the Omega level people. Like if we're bringing in the mutants like X-Men, we need the Omega level mutants. We need Captain Marvel. We're not going to need Captain Americas and things like that in Secret Wars as much. Now I know it's about putting them. They're going to put them. They'll probably put them with like powered people, right? Like similar levels.
Sure.
It's like Mortal Kombat. Like when you play the first one, you have to keep going up to the harder enemies.
All right, you're right. Like in this, because it reminds me of like that big war at the end of Endgame, and like you didn't have Thor fighting all of the little minion bad guy like and just crushing them, right? Like you had him fighting the mid tier baddies henchmen, right? Like you did, Thanos didn't come over and just crush the skull of one of the lower end
the Wakandans.
Like, yeah,
they're just sitting there like, oh,
like he's like, oh shit, he sees me. No, go fight Thor. He's your power level. Go. Like that's not, no one. I mean, as funny as that would be, like it just you're not going to do that, right? So,
okay, but then does it make more sense? Like, okay, let's take Superman and let's take Captain Marvel, right? In their fights, does it make more sense for Superman to go clear out all of the parademons really fast with his heat vision, with everything, just wipe them out, so then the battle's easier for the other guys? Or, and like Captain Marvel, would it have made more sense for her to wipe out all of the minions first and then make it easier. So then you got more people that can join the fight against Thanos, or was it better 1v1?
I'm gonna invoke the Power Rangers catch-22 because this falls into the same category to me. It's and I know probably the people that watch this video know who the Power Rangers are, and probably understand when you were a kid watching that show, you knew what was going to happen. You knew what was going to happen,
dude. 5 days a week, like freaking out of 30 freaking weeks worth of episodes, because it was like 60 something episodes per season. I mean, they just kept running, same format every time, every day.
Yeah, and I mean, we always ask ourselves, like, this episode would be over in 3 minutes if they just called in Megazord and just literally stepped on the bad guy before he got transformed into the big version, right? Like,
step on Rita. Like, it's all like, what is this?
Yeah, take off, go up to the moon or wherever the bitch is at, and just grab her and just go, and then that's the series. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's funny, but they won't ever do that, right? It's a yeah, you're right. Superman could just instantly take out all of the parademons and be done with it. But they won't.
It doesn't make for a good movie if you bring too much logic into it, right? So, but I get it, and I get, like, the Captain Marvel is basically now. If they're going to bring in the X-Men and we see Gladiator, he is the Superman. Like, he is literally heat vision, cold breath, flight, big jacked motherfucker. But Captain Marvel is the Superman, and this isn't a video discussing whether she's the most powerful Avenger or hero, because I know there's going to be people who say Thor. I know there's going to be people who are fans of Wanda, Scarlet Witch. So this isn't a debate about who's more powerful here, because again, all of their powers fluctuate. And Marvel does it really, really bad with fluctuation, where at one movie this person seems ultra powerful, the next one we're like, well, your powers seem kind of a little dumbed down, and then the next movie they seem ultra powerful again. Like with Superman, at least they keep him very consistent. It's just, again, I think that's where they come into the struggle with, and I think Captain Marvel felt that, is how do you incorporate this into a movie? And I feel like that's why they did the Marvels, was because you had three characters that were all very powerful, to maybe try to help balance it, but then you don't have a strong villain to warrant having three of that level tiered people fight. So it just regardless of all the bullshit that they interwove in there, I'm just saying, as far as talking about the characters themselves, I feel like that's why she's going to keep failing if you're going to try to do solo movies, base her on Earth, and yeah.
It's not the same. Again, these two universes, because we're comparing, is she the Superman of the MCU? These two things they're not really apples to apples when we're comparing the worlds that these characters live in. Again, Superman, although an alien, like, pretty much everything is centered around Earth, and it doesn't go away from that, even though there are some, I mean, again, like we said, there's those big baddies that come in, it's kind of the same. It's not the same with Captain Marvel, where again, this universe has had time to breathe. There's how many movies dedicated to these three phases, that there's an overarching story to all of this. It's all intertwined, and DC is just not there at all. They're not even close to that amount of intricacy and expansion, right? So they're, as far as the story goes, Superman, DC is really infant in their storyline of what's entailed in that, and Captain Marvel and the MCU, they're teenage, late 20s, I guess. I don't know. in the timeline of expansion of power, and exactly, because we always talk about, it's like, the Earth is so minuscule of a speck in the universe, right? So when you look at it that way, this, the MCU is a little bit expanding that. So
yeah, you're getting to see it more, and I think that's where, when you kind of final thoughts here, when you take a character as powerful as Captain Marvel for the MCU, it's better to put her out there outside of Earth, right?
Mhm.
It makes all of your Avengers characters that are on Earth seem worthless
Yeah.
because when and this would be the last thing here, but in Infinity War, when Captain and all them come back to the Avengers complex, and Ross is like, hey, they need to be arrested, and they're like, you just lost your greatest defender, and that was Iron Man, right? That's their greatest defender. Well, again, if you've got Captain Marvel on Earth,
It's I think you're fine. Yeah.
yeah, right. Like he's not your greatest defender. Like there's not
Yeah.
going to be anything that's going to stop her
That
versus
they know, right? Again, that they know. I mean, at that point, they didn't know who Captain Marvel was, right? Like, I mean,
yeah.
they. Oh, yeah, yeah,
Well,
okay,
let's not get into that
yeah,
because that's going to
yeah.
go into a whole.
I don't want to. I don't
Go
want
into
to.
my reason why I hated the
Yeah.
original Captain
Yes.
Marvel movie.
Sorry.
You fuck with the timeline. But yeah, like for the most part, they weren't. They keep forgetting that they fucked it up. But
Yeah.
yeah, so but guys, just kind of let us know down in the comments, what do you think? Now again, we're not talking about comparing powers to powers and this, but
Mm.
is this going to be a character that, even if they fix the story and acting, that's just going to be too hard to portray in movies, especially if they're going to be Earth based? Should they just keep her out in space and bring her in for the big events? Like, how do you guys feel about it? Again, put aside any hate and anger you have towards the character and what they've done with her thus far, and just think about overall Captain Marvel, even from the comics, right? Like, just however you want to view it, but view it as the character, and just let us know what you think about it.
Yeah. Again, we've ripped the Band-Aid off, right? We're at this point now in the storyline of the MCU. So where should they go with it from here? And what do you think is Captain Marvel the MCU's version of Superman? I mean, or is that a wrong comparison? Because I know you brought up Gladiator. Maybe it is Gladiator. Maybe Captain Marvel is more somebody else in the DC universe that we haven't brought up yet.
Well, just saying, yeah, if we're comparing Superman to Superman, DC's obviously Superman, and then the Marvel
You're right.
version, for me, it's Gladiator. I'm just saying, as far as
Right.
right now, what we've had in the MCU, Captain Marvel is the closest thing because she's the
Right.
Omega
Sorry, yes.
level. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yes, exactly. What we've seen so far in the movies. And yeah, what are the similarities that we missed, or some of the things that we forgot to bring up? So
All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and end it because we have been really, really bad on our New Year's resolution about keeping videos to like 15 minutes. But it's been a lot of it. It's been a lot of informative videos. I hope you guys have enjoyed them. If you are new to this channel and you haven't, go check those out. Definitely a lot of great stuff on the channel and a lot more to come. So to be able to see that, consider giving this video a like. He's going to show you where.
here we go. Sorry, the cameras are squished now.
Yeah, it's weird, but also now it just looks like you're pointing at your crotch. So hit that like button, hit the subscribe,
ding.
and the little bell. That all should be popping up right around the time he's saying that. So you get notified for when we do release these videos, as well as you go check out all of the other previous videos. We've got like 100 videos on YouTube here, going through everything Marvel and DC. So
yes, watch every one of them and comment how awesome they are.
I'm not going to ask you to do that. That's a big ask. Like I don't know that I could sit and watch every one of them right now. But like do a shit and scroll through some videos. That we're good bathroom material, right? To put on and watch and listen to while you're taking a grumper, man. Come on, at least give us that. Start there.
Yeah. We appreciate everyone's viewing and sticking with us on the channel. So we do appreciate it.
All right, guys, and that is going to do it for us here on this episode of You, Me, and DC. Until then, we will see you on the next one.
Later.
You had that salute just locked and loaded.
It was ready.